guilty on all counts yesterday and today. A lot of people reflecting, thinking about Ahmaud. People are encouraged to walk 2.23 miles in his honor today, Ben. A lot of remembrances going on. I know Wanda Cooper Jones, Ahmaud's mother, announced that his foundation will award 6 $3,000 scholarships to students at Brunswick High. That'll be announced on May 8th, which would have been Ahmaud's 28th birthday. But a lot to think about today, and just a very, very difficult day. Ahmaud Arbery murdered 2 years ago today.
Yeah, BJ, I think sometimes when you think about the situation that will happen with Ahmaud Arbery, I think the one thing that we need to make sure we doing, which I got to say this, BJ, Kevin, man, I appreciate you guys because I know sometimes, you don't understand everything that's going on, but I just think that sometimes it just comes down to the fact that, hey, no one wants to be celebrated in this way. No one wants to be remembered in this way, but my condolences go out to his family. I mean, BJ, I just remember telling you about it, and we both thought the same thing. Did this just happen? We didn't know this happened 3 months prior, 4 months prior, but it galvanized the nation. The fact that everybody around the nation, around the world, is, celebrating Ahmaud's life. We're not celebrating his death, we're celebrating his life. I think the judicial system got it right. And I think that sometimes, BJ, we have to, just thank God every day, man, that there are still good people left in the world, man. I mean, when a tragedy like this happens, you ask yourself, how does it move the needle? Does it change the narrative? Does it shape the narrative? Ahmaud Arbery, like most of us, went out swinging. And the fact that his mother is giving scholarships in his name just shows the type of people he came from, the type of person that he is. So it's still a hard day, BJ, because like I said, we don't live too far from where his life came to an end at. But I appreciate you, BJ, for always being thoughtful, just making sure that, we paying homage. That, listen, I understand we talk sports every day, man. I always say when real life knocks on our door, we got to make sure we answer the call. So to Ahmaud Arbery's family, to everybody that was affected by it, I just send my heart and my prayers and condolences to his mother and his father and his family. But I don't know what time I'm gonna do it today, but what is this, BJ? 2.3 miles, walk 2.3 miles. I'm gonna make sure I get it in today. But hey, Ahmaud, if you're listening, man, we miss you. And because BJ, and I know I may be speaking out of turn, but it just feels like the last 2 years he became a part of our family. Feels like we've known him a lot more. And hey, I just couldn't even fathom. But get your 2.3 miles in today. Make sure that we understand that this is supposed to bring us together, not separate us. And at the end of the day, a life was lost, justice was served. But hey, Ahmaud Arbery Day, we're gonna miss you. And hey, man, you galvanized the nation, and here we are, BJ, still remember him 2 years later.
Yeah, absolutely. And praying for Ahmaud and his family and the community. And as you mentioned, Ben, encouraging people to walk 2.23 miles in his honor. We mentioned the scholarship, some really powerful perspective shared today. This from Ahmaud's mother, Wanda Cooper Jones, speaking at the National Center for Civil and Human Rights in downtown Atlanta. Quote, "We believe in helping to create opportunities for young Black men to further their education, to start a business, to simply build a life, something Ahmaud did not have the chance to do. Justice goes beyond judgment made in the courtroom. Justice ensures every child, no matter what their skin color, has his socioeconomic situation, is safe and has equal opportunities to realize their dreams."
Listen, to Ahmaud Arbery's mom, who had just been out front the whole time, bravery, courage, honor, it comes in a lot of ways. And she could have easily, if she would have said, "Listen, I don't want nothing to do with this. I don't want nobody to talk to me," it would have been just fine. But she said, "No, now I'm gonna stand out front. I'm gonna make sure I'm doing my part. I'm gonna make sure that my son's death doesn't go in vain." And hey, I just think at the end of the day, BJ, she doing what a strong mother would do in the midst of losing her child, as tragic as it was. And I don't know if it gets more tragic than it is. She said, "Look, I'm gonna become an advocate. I'm gonna become a voice. I'm not going to be a person that just stands back and watches. I'm going to lead this charge." And kudos to her, man, because like I said, I don't know how much strength she has to garner to even be able to speak and even be able to do the things she's doing. But from Atlanta to the Golden Isles, I give her a lot of credit, man. So kudos to Mama Ahmaud, because she's doing it right now, man. So salute to her. So much respect for her.
Well said. Absolutely, Ben. And I believe we have Kevin Thomas now back with us on remote, getting ready for some high school basketball coming up later this evening. But obviously, Kevin, a very difficult day and a lot to think about and reflect on 2 years since the horrific murder of Ahmaud Arbery.
Sure, a lot has happened since then. I think a lot of folks said, at the end of the day, you want justice to be done, and there's three guys who are going to see the inside of a prison cell for the rest of their lives. Unfortunately, obviously, you hoped it wouldn't even come to that, and he would still be with us. But the three gentlemen that were involved in it all stood their day in court and all found guilty, and that's where they're going to be for the rest of their lives. And then you had the federal trial yesterday, and they were found guilty again. So you kind of had a couple of instances there where those three gentlemen were brought to justice in that situation. So again, horrific that you had to go through any of this, but at the end of the day, you feel like the men responsible are being held accountable for that, and I think that's out of tragedy. I think that's all you can hope for, and hope that incident brings to light something that won't happen again.
Absolutely. And we're here with you again on February 23rd, Ahmaud Arbery Day, 2 years since his murder. And we mentioned the scholarship that Wanda Cooper Jones announced. The Ahmaud Arbery Foundation is going to present six $3,000 scholarships to students at Brunswick High, where Ahmaud graduated in 2012. The recipients will be announced on May 8th, which would have been Ahmaud's 28th birthday. And just a lot to think about. Powerful perspective all over the place. This also from Ahmaud's mother. Laws changing is just the beginning. Next, we must change the minds and perception of Black men in this country. And that from a story on the AJC. But I know, Kevin, been something that Christian and PJ did on Second Down before we go to break on February 23rd here on Ahmaud Arbery Day. We want to end the segment with a 23-second moment of silence. Back here with you on 3 and Out on the Southern Pigskin Radio Network. Glad to be with you. BJ Bennett, Kevin Thomas alongside. We'll have Ben Troop back with us momentarily. Adam Schuler of the Tampa Bay Bandits, drafted today, former Florida Gator defensive lineman, and now part of the USFL. He will join us in about 15 minutes. But, Kev, I don't know how much you've seen this, but the USFL draft has been getting a lot of traction on social media, and it's been really interesting because the draft has been round by round with a focus on positions. So you draft quarterbacks this round, you draft edge rushers, linemen, corners, receivers, etc. But with the USFL, you have 8 teams: Michigan Panthers, New Jersey Generals, Philadelphia Stars, Pittsburgh Maulers, Birmingham Stallions, Houston Gamblers.
Who's your team?
New Orleans Breakers, Tampa Bay Bandits. Well, I got to go look at the roster.
No, who's your team?
Is that not dependent
You don't
partially
pull
on
for
who's on
teams
the
because of
rosters?
players?
I know a couple of Georgia Bulldogs got drafted today. I got
do
to
that?
go look.
No, it's dependent on uniforms.
I like the logo of the New Orleans Breakers.
Sick. That baby blue.
Is that and we were talking about some of the coaches, Larry Fedora, Kevin Sumlin, Jeff Fisher, but I think the New Orleans Breakers potentially have the coolest logo. Who's your team?
I hate to say it, but it might be Dallas
There is no Dallas.
or San Antonio, whatever the Texas team is.
I was gonna say I don't see Dallas or San Antonio.
What Texas team is it? Hold
Houston.
on, I'm pulling it up.
So just to confirm,
The Houston Gamblers.
Yeah, whoever the Gamblers are, Dallas Gamblers, the Texas Gamblers. We're just gonna call it Texas
so
Gamblers.
Dallas, no, San Antonio, Houston Gamblers.
Houston
okay.
Gamblers. All right, well it's the third town in Texas. Whatever.
And you're getting on me wanting to wait till the rosters are finalized.
No, I don't care. I just like the uniforms that look the coolest. The Gamblers. I mean, number one, the Gamblers, outstanding. Number two, the uniforms are slick. It's kind of what I wanted the Falcons to do with theirs.
Who did Kevin like with the was it the Birmingham Iron? Was that your team with one of the other
that was
leagues?
in the old AFL. Yeah, the Birmingham Iron. That was my team.
But what are your thoughts on the USFL? I think some pretty high profile guys drafted today. I think Shea Patterson last night, Michigan quarterback, was the number 1 overall pick going to the Michigan Panthers. How viable is this moving forward?
I mean, I'm going to say this will probably make Christian Gokel happy. And I'm going to say not very. With the XFL coming around and getting the endorsement of the NFL, kind of working in partnership, I would say that another startup league already with the kind of backing of not full backing, but a partnership with the NFL, probably going to stand to do a little better than the USFL. I also think they're kind of throwing this thing together a little faster than the XFL was the second go round. So we shall see.
Okay, let's talk about a lot of things really quickly here. You just said Shea Patterson was the number 1 overall pick. Shea Patterson.
Oh,
Yeah.
No. You didn't make a mistake.
Oh, I was going to say, did I mess something up?
But Shea Patterson is the number 1 overall pick in your league, and you're expecting this to be a viable product.
It's not the NFL.
But number 2.
Why do you always do this?
Number 2 is Kevin.
I'm sorry, Aaron Rodgers wasn't available.
No. Number 2 is Kevin Thomas just said, they're doing it very similar to what the XFL did in its second iteration, which would just
in the first
then
iteration.
lead you to the next point, which is the XFL is trying to come back for their third iteration. How many times are we going to keep dragging these carcasses up of these fraudulent
Well, don't put
football
another
leagues?
disease out there, and they'll probably would have made it. I mean, that's all I'll say about that.
Maybe. Why didn't they make it the first time?
Because they were shut down by a virus, as was like everybody
What was
else.
the Steve Spurrier League where they couldn't even get the insurance policies to practice in their own
That was
city,
the-
so they
that
had to
was
go to
the
Camden
AFL.
County and practice
the
in another
AAF.
state?
The American Alliance of Football.
Why are you not in support of football?
I love football. We got enough of it.
Now, it doesn't sound like it.
We got enough football.
Sounds like you hate football.
I love family.
You don't want guys
There can be
getting
too
jobs.
much.
You don't want guys
sometimes.
putting tape out there.
No. You guys love your family, right? You love your family.
Yes.
Yeah.
You love your family. You guys want more? You want some more kids?
Not today.
You want more?
The USFL is not costing me any money.
No. Do you want more kids?
Not anytime.
Because you
soon.
just
The
said if you
USFL
love it, you
is
should
not
want more
costing
of
me
it,
any
right?
money.
If you love it, you should
The
want more of it.
USFL
That's
is
what you're
not
saying.
costing me any money.
I love college football. I love the NFL. Those are two. I'm good there. I don't need anything else.
Do you not think there's room for a second professional league?
No.
Yes.
No.
Yes.
No, but you're asking that to me as a consumer. If you want to start, like, I think there should be minor leagues in baseball. I think those are great. I don't watch a single minor
There
league
are minor
baseball game.
leagues in baseball.
No, that's what I'm saying. But you were asking me as a consumer, is it a viable product? And I'm saying no, for the simple fact that you said Shea Patterson was the #1 overall pick. There's minor league baseball. Haven't watched a AAA baseball game maybe ever. Right? So as a consumer,
Right,
I
but
could
this is
care
not
less.
trying to compete with the National Football League.
Right, but Kevin's asking me as a consumer, more football is always better. Kevin, how many minor league baseball games did you watch last year?
I actually quite a few.
Do you
I like to
believe
see
him?
what the prospects?
Yeah,
are
he
gonna
was
do.
watching the Korean
Sorry, I'm
Baseball League too. He was watching.
Well,
minor
we
league
all
baseball.
watch KBO because there's nothing else.
Bring Ben back in. Ben,
Ben's here.
is this how viable is the
Define
USFL?
viable.
And what have your thoughts been on the
It will
draft?
be around till the XFL comes back in.
I think it's very valuable for the whole simple fact that, think about this. You got 16 games every Sunday, right? There's a reason why they give you 16 variations, because most of them are not good on Sunday. Some of them are, some of them aren't. The thing about the National Football League is, look, I was one of those ones, so I know people gonna say, well, Ben, it's easy for you to say no. I think when you start thinking about the fact that, man, being a professional, man, means a lot of things. You're not gonna listen, if less than 1% go pro, right? 250 some guys get drafted, half of those guys get cut. People want to play pro ball. Now, let's just put it out there. We're gonna have to say this every time. This is not the NFL. Nothing is. Nothing is. But man, is it pro football? Yes, it is. Because what happens is, man, when you start talking about being able to have variety, the XFL did not make it because it wasn't good football. They didn't have their finances in order. That's the football. The product on the field got better week by week, just like it does in the NFL. Week 1 in the NFL don't look like week 17 or 18. It gets better. I'm not even going to talk about the USFL, XFL, and the NFL in the same breath. I'm not going to do that. But I know that when you start talking about being able to have guys wanting to be able to play past college, that's extremely difficult. Extremely difficult. Like, I was one of the ones that was blessed enough to do it. And to this day, man, I don't know why, because everybody around me, about same height, same speed. Yeah, athleticism might have been a little different. But in the 2004 draft class, right, the 2004, the last player just left. That was Ben Roethlisberger. He was the last guy left. You know who played 17 years? Ben Watson, tight end from Georgia. He played 17. Now, if you go back to 2004, you think he's gonna play? You think he's gonna be the last two guys standing? No. But I think when you think about a situation like the USFL, that is beautiful because guys just want to play, man. You get a bunch of hungry dudes that thought their football career was over. I mean, I'm talking to guys, they doing real estate, they selling insurance. They say, look, I mean, Kurt Warner, right? Kurt Warner, I know he got his story out on. I know it's everybody's looking at the story. He's a Hall of Fame and all these different things. But Christian, look, I know what you're saying. I see both sides. I see what you're saying. But all I'm saying is, just because it ain't the NFL, don't mean it ain't good. Nothing is the NFL.
I think the word viable, because BJ, you always say words mean things, right? Mm-hmm. When you ask if it's viable, what does that mean? If you're asking me, is this a viable product that is going to live or die based on how many people watch it? If you tell me Shea Patterson is your first overall pick and potentially the biggest star in your league, no. If you're telling me that,
but I don't. But hold on. I don't think the NFL. Ben, I think you said yesterday what baseball's about the teams, basketball's about the stars, the NFL is about the shield, the league. I think this is not so much saying we have the biggest stars in the sport. You know that. You know that's not the case. This is about football and football beyond the National Football League.
Think about what you have to
football.
do. Think about what the average fan has to do to consume their teams, right? The average fan has a college football team and they have an NFL team, right? They're not weird like us, where from 9 o'clock in the morning until 1 o'clock at night on Saturdays, we're just consuming college football. They have their one team, and then they're like, babe, listen, my team plays at noon. So about 3:30, 4 o'clock, then you can have me. I'll help out with the kids. We'll go to the grocery store. We'll do whatever we have to do. I see that 4-hour window where I can watch the team. And then you're really pushing it on Sundays when you try to do the same thing. You're like, listen, we're playing at 1 o'clock. We're playing Kansas City. I got to watch that. I don't think the average sports fan is setting aside times to watch the Houston Gamblers.
They're not. Well, they're certainly not watching the Dallas
Gamblers. Here's where this can't
be. The San Antonio Gambler.
No one is, apparently. Here's where this can't be viable is sports betting. streaming deals, stuff like that. But if you're just counting on people, like everyday people watching it, it's not viable.
It's spring football.
Can I just raise my hand here for a second and point out the irony of the non-married guy telling us how we interact with spouses watching that kind of football on Saturday? I thought I would throw that out.
No. Everything
football game.
Everything has a start, right?
All right, let's get Amy on here.
Christian, think about this. Christian, hold on. Okay.
I'll be right back.
I'm finna, because it's easy to do it this way. Christian, safety coming out of Gwinnett, right? Goes to Georgia State, balls.
I would never.
Just hold on. No. The Larry Fedora's team, the New Orleans, whatever they are, they draft Christian, right? The thing about it is this, right? You know what the NFL has? It has people advocating for it. Oh man, but it's also been out there a long time. You think anybody lining up to watch Detroit every Sunday? No. But you're going to watch it because they're in the league. Why you think the only reason why Detroit play on Thanksgiving is because they're in a dome. It's not because they're good. All I'm saying is, Kevin and BJ, is this. The NFL is the exception, man. It's not the rule. This is the rule we're talking about. The USFL, XFL, when it comes in 2023. No one's comparing it. Like, did y'all see Thursday Night Football last year in the NFL? Me neither. Did y'all see when Atlanta played New England on Thursday night? That was awful football. Mac Jones looking like Matt Ryan, and Matt Ryan looking like Mac Jones. All I'm saying is, give it a chance first. And Christian,
But
right
if you
now,
do what?
give it a chance. What's the first thing? Hold on. What's the first thing you say,
We
Christian?
play old man football. Nobody wants to watch that.
We don't have.
They're gonna watch it.
We were talking about the uniforms earlier.
What? What did you say about the uniform?
DJ says the crucial point in all of this is cool uniforms.
Listen, I would Christian. No, Kevin. This is what's really gonna happen. All I'm gonna do is I'm gonna wait on Christian to come in the office and say, I mean, it wasn't bad last weekend. It wasn't good.
You're gonna be waiting a long time.
Listen, no. Christian ain't gonna admit it might be okay because he's already. No, it's gonna be all right.
You will not watch it out of spite.
Huh?
100%. I said Christian will not watch it out of spite. It doesn't matter if it's the best ever. He wouldn't watch it out of spite.
Agreed.
Just to prove some kind of point. I don't understand what point.
I'm not some kind of narcissistic, egotistical person that would deprive myself of enjoyment just to prove a point to you guys.
I think you would be.
That's you, Kevin.
So, I mean, look, is it the NFL? No, nobody expects it to be. I think, go back to the original question, I think it's going to last until the XFL comes back in. Why? XFL got a partnership with the NFL. XFL has the rock behind it. And I'm telling you, the one has those backing behind it. That carries a lot more weight, I think.
But the backing of it is basically the NFL is going to use it as a petri dish to say, hey, we want to try a new rule. You try this. There's going to be no fiscal support.
Does the USFL have a partnership with the NFL in any way, shape, or form?
Oh, we can't go to break, BJ. We have a character witness joining the show here.
Oh boy.
Oh, okay, that's fine.
We have a character witness joining the show here.
I'll let you handle this.
Yes, I now bring to the stand the beautiful, talented, lovely Amy, wife of Kevin Thomas. Amy, we were having a conversation earlier about the fact that there's only so much time in a weekend. I know you have two young ones and they play sports, right? And so during football season, your husband can say, hey, babe, for work, I have to watch college football. And on Sunday, I have to watch some NFL, right? It's viable for work.
Yeah.
If Kevin came to you and said during the spring, so say from February through May, hey, listen, babe, on Sunday, I have to watch the XFL. Your response to that is what?
I don't think so.
Even though I did it the last time around, so that's fine.
If he says, hey, I can't come to this family event, or hey, you might have to take the kids to this and I'm going to stay here because I am watching the USFL, your reaction is?
It is what it is. When you're married to somebody on sports radio, it is what it is.
This is not going the way I wanted it to at all. Amy, thank you for your time. I'm never calling you as a character witness ever again.
What was I supposed to say? Yes.
You're supposed to yell at him and say I'm right.
You're right,
Well,
Christian.
you don't put that
Thank
man,
you,
you don't
thank
put
you,
that
love you,
man
bud.
wife up. You don't put that man
All
wife
right.
up
That's
against him.
right. See, you're
Love you,
losing the
I didn't even
argument
get-
all the way around.
She
No,
said,
no, Christian. Kevin looked at Amy like, boo, you know what to do. You better handle that.
Hey,
You
the
better handle
USFL
that.
is here. When we come back, Adam Schuler, drafted by the Tampa Bay Bandits. He will join us next. It's 3 and Out on the Southern Pigskin Radio Network. Back here with you, 3 and Out on a Wednesday afternoon on the Southern Pigskin Radio Network. The USFL draft underway, looking ahead, some of us are, to the USFL. We are efforting Adam Schuler, former Gators defensive lineman, drafted by the Tampa Bay Bandits. But, Ben, you were talking about opportunities, okay, guys who were big-time college football players, a number of guys who have been in the league, have played in the National Football League. Talk about these opportunities that, whether it's the USFL, whether it's the XFL, talk about these opportunities to continue to play professional football. Because if you go look through the draft, there were some guys who were All-Americans, guys who were All-Conference, guys, again, who played in the league. There are some players with very impressive resumes coming into the USFL.
Yes, it is, BJ. And let's not kid ourselves and act like only the best players in the world from the previous year in college get drafted. No, there are guys that get drafted. There are guys that get drafted really, really high. That we go do? How did he go that high? There are guys that go undrafted. That we go do? How did he slip that low? There is a plethora of talent in college football. I mean, it's talent all over the place. And just think about this too. Christian made a point saying Shea Patterson was the number 1 overall pick. There are guys. They're not going to get drafted in the USFL either. Like sometimes, right, when you think about how many players, the USFL or the XFL or anything not named the NFL, and you hear your number call, you hear your phone number ring, it's an incredible blessing. It is a job well done. I'm gonna say this, whether it's Division I, Division II, NAIA, Division III, Ivy League, whatever you want. Everybody that has a dream of going pro wants to go pro. They want to play at the next level. The next level used to be one league. One. And they still going to these schools, right? Whether you go to University of Georgia, right? Or West Georgia, right? Georgia Southern, Georgia Tech, Mercer, you want to go pro. Problem is, it's only 250-something slots. And half of those guys going to get cut. Remember them numbers BJ and Kevin and Christian I gave you? It ain't the 53. Once you make the 53, then you got to make the 47. Those are the guys that dress. After the 47, you got to be the 30-something guys that play. Whereas, if I go, NFL, USFL, XFL, Canadian Football League, okay, now I got more of a shot because I'm telling y'all, I think it's crazy when we get to thinking about just how rare this opportunity is. So I'm happy for those guys that got drafted. I think some of those guys, some of those guys are going to get a chance to know what it feels like to be a headliner in a league that really doesn't have stars yet. You don't know who's going to be the star. BJ, we talked about this. In the National Football League, right? Derrick Henry rushed for 2,000 yards. Nobody cared. Nobody. He rushed for 2,000 and nobody cared. If you ain't Patrick Mahomes, if you ain't Matthew Stafford, if you ain't, Kyler Murray, those guys, you another player in the league, and that's fine. If you in the USFL, you got a chance to be a headliner. They don't have a face yet. Shea Patterson went number 1. He may stink up the joint, right? You got a chance to be a headliner. So I'm happy for those guys. I know how rare this opportunity is because on a 53-man roster in the National Football League, how many players could you name? How many players, BJ, Kevin, and Christian, can we name off the Cincinnati Bengals defense outside of Eli Apple and Hendrickson?
That's fair.
I'm just saying. So it's a lot of no names already. Listen, but guess what? For anybody, and I ain't talking about you, Chris. It's all love over here. But anybody that's talking trash about the USFL, just do this. Did they call your number? Because they called my number, and I'm going. So I'm happy for those boys. And all I'm saying is this, man. Football is football. If you're getting a check, you are a pro. Because you play your whole life for free. It might not be, nobody's going to get a bigger check than Patrick Mahomes, but he also signed a 39-year deal to stay with Kansas City, and he ain't going to want to do that. All I'm saying is shout out to those fellas that got drafted. It is a job well done because most of those dudes thought that their pro careers were done. Them boys at work today saying, doing their boss like this. Hello? What? I'm just saying, man, there wasn't no draft parties.
But I want to say this, though, because and super excited for everybody that has the opportunity. But, going back to last segment asking, well, are you going to schedule, your afternoon around these games? What's kind of the appeal? I think the appeal is these are former big-time college football players. And I think all of us love seeing college football players, what they do at the next level. Maybe that's the National Football League. Maybe it's the XFL or the USFL. And I think there's a very real appeal to that. Whether you're, a fan of Georgia and you want to see, I know Davin Bellamy was one of the top maybe the top defender drafted in the USFL draft. You want to see how some Georgia Bulldogs are doing, or you're a fan of the SEC. You want to see how some former SEC stars are doing. I think that's where there is a fixed appeal, Kevin, because college football is something people love, and this is a chance to watch former college football stars now play professionally.
Yeah, and again, I'm interested to see what they do with it. I think the kind of the intrigue of the XFL to me was some of the innovations, and maybe that's what they're going to do moving forward. Of, hey, we're going to try this rules package. We're going to make it a little bit different just to see how it goes, just see how it plays out. And again, I think if you actually watch the XFL, it was pretty fun. I mean, it was different enough. But still football. And I think where they excelled versus the AAF and maybe what the USFL is I do think we have a immediate desire to say, hey, it's game one of a brand new league. If it's not 21-20 with a dude kicking a field goal with 5 seconds left, it wasn't a good game. It wasn't good competition. It wasn't good. And I think that's not the case. I think you have to give it time to grow and develop. I'm sure if you go back and watch the very first NBA game, I'm sure people nowadays would be like, oh man, this is trash. What are you talking about? We can't watch this. So, I mean, I think you got to give some of these leagues time to grow and develop. I do think in the spring, there's probably only room for one if you're going to do it. And I think the USFL, if I had to bet against one, I'm going to bet against that one and go with the one that has at least a partnership, as I said before, with the National Football League. So, and maybe one of the biggest stars walking the planet in The Rock kind of involved in the ownership of the league as well. So I'm thinking that's going to be the one that makes it. But again, I'm like Ben. It's football. It's a chance to watch. It's a chance for guys to develop and continue to play. And hey, there's a lot of people out there said, I'll play spring league football if it means I don't have to sit behind a desk or something like that. So I think there's opportunity out there. We'll see how it goes. I think their mistake is going to be like the AAF, where they threw it all together very quickly. I think they're getting less than 2 or 3 weeks until the first game. And I think they're playing it all in the same city, if I read that correctly. So they're not even moving around. I think that's going to be a problem if you want to try to get folks interested in it as well, as there's not really a lot of different places to go watch it. So, but yeah, opportunity for them to go out and play. We'll see what they do to try to distinguish themselves as kind of a new product and something that people want to get involved with.
Kevin, this is just an honest to goodness question. It's the final week of the USFL season. You're battling for playoff positioning, and you have the Bandits taking on the Gamblers at 1:00, right?
Yeah.
Setting the scene for you. Big old game coming up. That again, playing for playoff seeding, right?
Yep.
That or Braves Phillies 1:00 first pitch regular season game.
Okay, I'll retort with this. How many do you have up in your house?
Whoa.
Just asking.
Christian.
I would probably
Christian.
watch both if I have
Christian.
developed a following
Christian.
into it. But I mean, yeah, I will
Who was,
back and forth. That's what a remote control's for.
Christian, who was the 1985 USFL MVP?
I don't know if the USFL had an MVP in 1985.
The 1985 USFL MVP will go by the name of one Herschel Walker. He was the 1985 USFL MVP. All I'm saying is he got drafted originally by the New Jersey Generals. Listen, it's weird. Listen, all I'm saying is this. All I'm saying is this.
Okay, and so you just said the MVP in 1985 was Herschel Walker, and the number 1 overall pick in 2022 is Shea Patterson, Ben.
It's not.
Hold on. Wait. You got to have a start point.
But the USFL MVP, and that's what he just gave me.
No. Hold on. All I'm saying is, Christian, listen, there was some validity to this league, but a bigger entity came and took it over. It happens. Shea Patterson, go out there and win an MVP, and we're gonna give you we're gonna let you send that jersey to the good old Christian.
Oh, we already had this conversation. If Shea Patterson wins the MVP, did he actually win an MVP? Well, that's another conversation that me and BJ were having.
He won the USFL. Whoa. Once again, Christian, I'm gonna come back again. So you're telling me, Christian, if I get drafted in 2022 to the USFL, and I'm the USFL championship game MVP, and I come work here 10 years later, you gonna be like, well, did he really win it? There he is right there. What you mean? I'm just
We
saying.
like the extra bowl games. Well, not Kevin, but if there's a bowl game that's a 6-6 team and a 5-7 team, we're still watching it.
It's college football, baby.
And this is pro football.
I'm going to get a Shea Patterson jersey just for Christian.
I hope you do, big guy.
This is pro football. It's an opportunity for guys to continue to compete, play, It's not.
And I'm
going-
not saying any of that's bad. Like you guys are having two different conversations here.
I'm not saying you're saying it's bad, Christian. This is really gonna
I'm
happen.
not saying that either. I'm saying the
No.
validity of
No.
relying on people watching it is very.
Listen. Hold on. Kevin got 2 sons. I got a son. BJ got a son. I got a bunch of nephews. Guarantee you one of them gonna get drafted in the USFL. They're gonna say, "Is Christian
I
coming to
can
the
almost
game?"
guarantee they won't because it won't be around.
Now listen. I'm gonna say, you want Christian to come? I'm gonna say, you want Christian to come to the game? Yeah. Call him and ask him. Tell him you got some seats.
I got a regular season MLB game to go to.
You know what, Christian? You ain't going to that one. Just telling you that right now. You listen. You going to see the Biloxi? You know what it is. Come on out
Oh,
there.
I mean, if they're playing a home game in Biloxi, I'll go just because it's Biloxi.
Listen, Christian, this is what you don't realize about 2022. Kevin Thomas has come around. He believes in triple chocolate. He believes in bowl games. You know what it is, bowl game in Las Vegas. And Kevin believes in the USFL.
Yeah.
No. I actually don't. I said I would go with the other league.
Yeah. Kevin does
said
not
the
believe the
XFL.
USFL is going to work.
All right, here it is. Here's the ultimate question. Kevin and Christian get a call from the USFL. They want to pay y'all to call a game. You're going to say no?
I wouldn't say I called a professional football game.
Hold on. Didn't you do stats
Wow.
for an NFL game
That's
one day?
bad.
Yeah, I did. And that was the very, very lowest denominator of a pro football game. That was the Chargers
Jaguars?
and the Jags. Yeah. So it might be an upgrade, honestly. Doing
So
a
you're
USFL
saying
game
you wouldn't
after
take
that.
USFL's money? You wouldn't take that money to call a game?
I would absolutely take the money to call a game. Now we're having another different conversation.
Kevin hates bowl games. Christian doesn't like football.
Love football. Don't believe this is going to work.
I don't think we know. And Kevin made
I think we do know. I think
No.
we have seen countless examples of it not working.
Kevin made a good
but we
point.
always want to believe.
that a lot of people have long asked, can there be a secondary pro football league? Well, I think can there be 3? I mean, you have the XFL, in a couple of years, you have the USFL in a couple of months. I think there are questions to be asked. I think that's very fair. I'm not disagreeing with that. It feels like you're, any positivity. Nope, don't want to hear it. It's football. I'm rooting for more football.
I think that's fine. I think I'm being a realist.
All right.
You can be an optimist.
I'm rooting for more football. I believe we're going to try to reschedule Adam Schuler for the second hour, former Gator drafted by the Tampa Bay Bandits. And again, the way they did the draft, it's kind of neat. Did different positions in different rounds.
I have an important question for Kevin. I'm sorry.
Okay.
Is the slogan for this version of the XFL third time's the charm?
Nope.
We'll go to break. We're going to see if we can get Adam Schuler in hour 2. It is 3 and Out on the Southern Pigskin Radio Network. Back here with you on Three and Out. Ben, I know you have your men's symposium at East Georgia State College in Swainsboro coming up. More information, folks can register theuncommoncrew.cru.com. Tell folks about it.
Really looking forward to it. The first annual 2022 Men's Symposium going down in Swainsboro, Georgia, East Georgia State College Auditorium. Doors open promptly at 9:30 to 2:30. There will be door prizes given away. There will be cash prizes given away. It's going to be a lot of fun, man. Guest speaker, Justin West from League of Bron, Andre Drummond going to be doing the presentation from the 14 to 20-year-old group. It's going to be a lot of fun. Mike got some surprises at the end, got some surprises during, but make sure to go to www.theuncommoncrew.com to register. I think it's going to be a great event, BJ. I think when you start talking about money matters and being able to talk to the young men and the grown men, getting them all in one venue. It is free, by the way, and breakfast and lunch will be served.
It is free, but right, you're wanting people to go register at theuncommoncrew.com just to have kind of a pre-notice, right?
Yes, we want to make sure that we got all the participants in. The last day to register is this upcoming Monday, but go to www.theuncommoncrew.com. Doors open from 9:30 to 2:30. Going to be held Swainsboro, Georgia, East Georgia State College at the auditorium. Should be a lot of fun, man. First of 4 events. Don't meet me there, beat me there.
All right, so theuncommoncrew.cru.com. We'll come back. A lot more to get to. We'll take 3. RJ Anderson of CBS Sports will join us. The latest on the Major League Baseball lockout. Is there any news on that front? And then I don't know if you want to think about this, but options for the Braves in case Freddie Freeman leaves in free. I'm saying options for the Braves in case Freddie Freeman leaves in free agency. RJ has a story up about some potential candidates there. So we'll talk some baseball as well. BJ Bennett, Ben Troop, Kevin Thomas here with us on remote alongside. We'll come back with more Three and Out on the Southern Pigskin Radio Network, ESPNCoastal.com, streaming live. It is 3 and Out on the Southern Pigskin Radio Network. BJ Bennett alongside Kevin Thomas and Ben Troop. A lot to get to this hour. We will chat with RJ Anderson of CBS Sports, get the latest on the Major League Baseball lockout, options for the Braves in case if Freddie Freeman leaves in free agency. He has a story up, 5 possible names, some big names there if Freddie Freeman leaves in free agency. So we'll get to that. But guys, with Kevin Thomas and Ben Troop here alongside via remote, we will take 3 here on a Wednesday afternoon. All right, Kevin, you have to answer them today. So,
Okay.
So I like this. All right, take 1. Who are your top 3 running back prospects in the NFL draft?
I mean, look, for me, wow. I mean, now I know this is the position we say that, you know what, you can get value later on in the draft, but I mean, I've seen some guys that really made some strides. My number 3 is Kerryon Williams for Notre Dame. I mean, BJ and Kevin. 14 tackles in the last 8 games of the year, 58 broken tackles. Now, he's not the biggest back in the world, but he's super duper productive. When you think about Notre Dame, I mean, BJ, you go. I give you game 1 of the season when, I mean, they just couldn't stop him. That Florida State defense. I mean, I think he's a guy that can definitely be a big time back at the next level. My number 2 is Kenneth Walker. I mean, 89 broken tackles. You know that Big Ten. I want to run the football. Mel Tucker is loving him. Some Kenneth Walker because of Kenneth Walker. Look, we talking about 95 million big ones as far as like an extension. Big time back. I think he's gonna be a guy that can definitely be a two-way guy. But my number 1, I'm sorry, I think it's Isaiah Spiller. BJ, you talk about a guy that what? Listen, he's actually a power back. Like he wants to run you over, but he got sweet feet, right? He's shifty. So BJ, the one thing we talk about, no drops. They didn't throw him the ball enough. He never dropped it when you threw it to him. So because you got a guy that can catch out the backfield, got sweet feet, a power back, and shifty, I'm gonna go with Isaiah Spiller as my number 1 back coming out.
Yeah, I'm going to go pretty similar list there. Kenneth Walker, the 3rd, will be mine. Number 3, if we'll go count it up the list. They're out of Michigan State. I think he did a great job. Obviously was a feature of that Michigan State offense. My number 2, I think because of the versatility, and again, I'm going to stick by, you can find great value in the later rounds. I think somebody's going to get a steal in James Cook. I'll say James Cook, number 2 out of Georgia. Not the mileage that some backs may have on him in college. Played in the SEC, played on a team with championship level expectations, can catch the football, can run the football, obviously very effectively. I think he's number 2. My number 1, I'm going to agree with Ben, Isaiah Spiller, Texas A&M. Again, if I'm going to take somebody, take him out of the SEC, chances are they'll be at least solid for you, if not very good. He was the best probably in the SEC this past season. I'm going to go with Isaiah Spiller, 6'1", 215. Am I drafting any of these guys in the first round? Probably not, because I'm not a first-round running back guy, but I'd be all over them in the second round for sure.
No, I think that's fair for me. I'll go Breece Hall, 3 out of Iowa State. I think productive between the tackles, runner. You like what he did in college. I'll go Isaiah Spiller, too. Has that big play ability. And, Kevin, I'm with you. In the SEC, that production matters. And I like Kenneth Walker. I just think what he did in the ACC and the Big Ten at Wake Forest and Michigan State, the numbers speak for themselves, and I think he's ready to be a go-to playmaker, a featured back right away. All right, take 2. The Jaguars have the 3rd most money in free agency. What one free agent should the Jaguars pursue the most?
I mean, wow. I mean, the Jaguars need so much, right? They need so much. But the one thing I know that help a defense, I'm going to go defense first. I think the Jags, BJ and Kevin, they need to call Chandler Jones, and they need to call him right now. This dude is so undervalued. Like, people act as if he isn't one of the top 10 pass rushers in the league, right? I mean, he did it for New England. He did it for Arizona, and he's never, ever really been a headliner like I think he's built to do. I mean, not the youngest guy, but look, I think when you talk about just instant production, Josh Allen was at his best when he didn't have to do it on his own. When he had Unique Ndakwe on one side and he was on the other side, I know you got Clavon Chason, BJ, who needs to still learn, because Clavon Chason and Chandler Jones kind of similar build, right? Even though I think Chandler might be a little bigger. Give me Chandler Jones out of Arizona. He need to be on the flight to Jacksonville ASAP.
Well, if you go pie in the sky, I mean, there's some guys out there. You have, hey, Von Miller. I mean, but that's not going to happen. I would say there's a guy right down the road from Jacksonville in Tampa that would make a lot of sense. Chris Godwin. I don't know if they're going to be able to get him. So I will say is a more realistic option. Mike Williams from the Chargers could be a free agent. Look, you're going to go out and get tackle at number one, which a lot of people think they're going to do. Protect your quarterback, help your quarterback, right? Protect your quarterback in the draft, help him in free agency. I think Mike Williams, 4 years, around 60, 70 million, somewhere in there is what he's probably going to be asking for. I think that's a possibility. If you want to take a step back from there and say, Kevin, that's not realistic, how about a reunion with Allen Robinson? Played fairly well in Jacksonville once before. Free agent out of Chicago, might get him a little cheaper. Might be a guy that can come in and make plays. So Allen Robinson would be my fallback plan B. But obviously I like wide receivers because that's all I'm putting out there. If you're Jags, who cares about rushing the quarterback? Protect the quarterback, help the quarterback. That's what they need.
And hold on, and I know BJ finna go, but BJ, and I'm gonna say this again. The one I really wanted to say was Devontae Adams. Because you got the money to get it right. And think about this, BJ. Think about this. Just hold on, Kevin. Think about this.
That's that pie in the sky I was talking.
No. You got a $60 million pie. You can go out there and give him whatever. He wants to be the highest paid receiver, and rightfully so. But BJ, he says he wants to go somewhere. Now you can do one or two. I want to go with a young quarterback that's showing promise, and a team that's gonna contend. He's not gonna get number two. And that ain't happening. But he's gonna get a young quarterback. Who knows, BJ? AFC South, Deshaun Watson is not going to be in the division next year. No one cares about Carson Wentz. Learn how to tackle Derrick Henry. You got a shot. You get a boy like Devontae. No state tax.
That's why I mean, Kevin's going wide receiver. If we're mentioning wide receivers and we're going, look, big of a.
The only reason I didn't say him, I think that's pie in the sky, and that's not going to happen.
Probably, but it's take three. So I'm going to say Devontae Adams, offer him everything. What that would mean for Trevor Lawrence, wow. I mean, you talk about helping him get to that next level. Doug Peterson in there, if you were to add Devontae Adams, I mean, my goodness, that immediately changes the dynamic of the Jacksonville Jaguars. Now, do I think that's realistic? Probably not. But would I at least make the offer, make the call, make a run? Yes, Devontae Adams. All right, spring practice starting around the country, college football. Which ACC team are you most interested to see this spring?
I mean, for me, this is easy for me. I think it's Miami. I mean, Mario Cristobal comes in. I mean, you talk about being able to change up that staff. I mean, he's going out there and getting all these, got $8 million to put together a whole new staff, BJ and Kevin. And look, I mean, I just think when you think about Miami, we asking ourselves, who are they for real? Like, they've gone to one ACC championship game since they've been in the ACC, and I know they kind of ruined their second one because of fighting and all that other kind of stuff. But I'm just saying, you start talking about the players, you start talking about the infrastructure, you start talking about, what type of team are they going to be. Look, they're going to have to show some promise here early. Mario Cristobal, they gave him a lot of money for individually and for his staff. I just think that, for me, they're the most intriguing because you ask yourself, is Miami ever going to get back to who they used to be? No. Is Miami even really relevant at this point? No. So I think Miami is going to be the most intriguing team because I think Mario Cristobal is not going to get a mulligan. He's going to have to come out there winning games early and winning games often. So give me them Hurricanes.
I feel like there's 14 teams in the league. I think there's about 12 good answers to this because of how much overturn there's going to be and how much just big storylines there are in the league. I'm going to go with Wake Forest, and I'm going to say, can they repeat as the ACC Atlantic Division champions? Because people expect Florida State to be a little bit better. Clemson still won 10 games last year, despite a lot of people think they were down. They still won 10 games. I think you look at some of the other teams. Is Boston College taking another step forward in their rebuild? Is Louisville going to be better moving forward here? I think there's a lot of questions on that side. Can they repeat? They got the quarterback back. Fun team to watch. Defensively, they got to get a lot better, BJ, obviously, but offensively, they're going to put points up, and they could be a whole lot of fun to watch. That's one I'm looking forward to because, again, they are the Vanderbilt of the ACC, except they win games. And that's really the fact they're the smallest school in the league. They don't have a huge fan base because of that, but they figured out a way to win and be competitive, and can they go back-to-back? They're a fun team to watch.
I'm going to go Clemson. You know, I think a lot of people kind of turned the page from Clemson and said, oh, they're no longer a national contender. This is a team that finished the season red hot, and you bring back a lot of talent offensively and defensively. Now you have new offensive coordinator, new defensive coordinator. I think that'll be a real challenge and kind of test to the Clemson dynasty. But you don't win the ACC Atlantic. People around the country nationally kind of move on from you. There's not the same hype that there normally is. How does Clemson respond to that? I think they're very much capable of a run to the college football playoff. I think they are very, very much capable of being a championship team in the ACC. I mean, I know NC State, high expectations. Wake Forest, high expectations. Like you said, Kevin, maybe Florida State is a little bit better. Louisville, Nicole Cunningham's back, or Malik Cunningham's back. But I think when you look at the ACC, it still starts with Clemson. Even looking in the Coastal, Miami, yes, they're going to be good. But Clemson is still the team to beat, even though they aren't the defending conference champions. Pitt's there. They're probably preseason top 15. But, Ben, I mean, do you feel like we've kind of turned the page too quickly on Clemson?
Yes and no. Yes, because I think, BJ, we are creatures of the moment. And I think when you talk about a team like Clemson with so much big-time postseason aspirations, I mean, DJ, you had everybody thinking he was the next coming because when he played the year before against Notre Dame, I mean, he was lights out. And I'm sorry, but we expect DJU to be that guy. BJ, Kevin, he might not be that guy. He might be good, but not great, right? So we'll see, BJ. But I also say no because, like you said, 10 games. And I think sometimes, you know, when you're going to have a step back, it's supposed to be how Clemson did it, not how LSU did it. Like, you lost, you know, you won 10 games. You didn't play the ACC championship game, but you still had a very, 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 very respectable year. But, BJ, I think what Clemson has done is they've raised the level of expectation outside of Clemson. People expect them to get it done. They didn't get it done. Still won 10 games. But when you win 10 games and people think you had a bad year, that's when you know you've raised the level of expectation and standard for your school. So they'll be back. They're going to be on that redemption tour all year, unfortunately.
That'll do it for Take 3. BJ Bennett, Kevin Thomas, Ben Troop. A lot to get to this hour. RJ Anderson from CBS Sports will join us in about 15 minutes. Some potential options for the Atlanta Braves if Freddie Freeman is not re-signed, plus what's the latest with the lockout. We'll chat with him in about 15 minutes. We'll come back and get Kevin's thoughts on the Freddie Freeman speculation. Some saying, hey, maybe he's not coming back to Atlanta. We'll discuss that next. 3 and Out on the Southern Pigskin Radio Network. Back here with you on 3 and Out. BJ Bennett alongside Kevin Thomas and Ben Troop all across the Southern Pigskin Radio Network, streaming live on the web, ESPNCoastal.com. Kevin, there are stories, reports. There's a, quote, growing belief that Freddie Freeman might not be coming back to the Atlanta Braves. I know when we talked about that yesterday, your thought was, well, nothing's been happening during the lockout, so how is that possible? What is your response to the reported growing belief that Freddie Freeman may not be an Atlanta Brave?
I mean, it makes for a good story. I think when you look at those stories, a lot of unnamed executives, a lot of people not willing to put their name on the record. Why? Because you can't talk to him. You can't talk to Braves can't talk to him. Mets can't talk. Nobody can talk to him. So how is there a growing belief that he's going to sign somewhere else when literally nobody can negotiate? The Braves offered him a contract. Obviously, they can't offer him an updated contract until they figured this mess out. So, growing belief by who? The people that want to sign him? Yeah, I believe. Look, if I'm the New York Yankees and I want Freddie Freeman, I too would have a growing belief that Freddie Freeman does not want to sign with the Atlanta Braves and that I could get him. Something is, again, I don't mean it's 100% that Freddie Freeman comes back. I just think when you see stuff like that, it's my first question is, based on what? You can't talk to him. You can't talk to any of the free agents out there right now. So, could I go out there and say, hey, there's a growing belief that player X is not going to sign with this team based on what? He doesn't know what the team's going to offer him. I mean, what are the Yankees going to offer Freddie Freeman? What would the Rangers offer Freddie Freeman? What would the Dodgers or Angels offer Freddie Freeman? Does anybody know? Have they said publicly? Have they said it to him? No, they haven't. So I don't know why there's a growing belief that he won't come back with the Braves other than fan paranoia, and we'd like to have something to talk about, right? If I had $1 for every tweet that had hand-wringing about, oh, no, what are the Braves going to do if Freddie's gone? And he's not coming back. Like, based on what? That they don't have a deal yet? Maybe I'm naive in this situation.
I guess
it doesn't mean 100% he's coming back, but
in your mind,
I think once a deal's in place, look, part of this is the Braves sitting back going, look, are we going to have to sign a DH, a full-time? Are we looking at a new CBA that's going to require us to up salaries? Are we looking at a new CBA that means some of these guys that are coming up are going to get to arbitration quicker, i.e. we're going to need to spend more money? Are we keeping the 26-man on the roster, which means more money? How does that affect into what we're willing to offer Freddie Freeman? So I think some of this is a good thing. Get the CBA developed, get the CBA agreed upon, you know what financials you're working with, and make that offer. But again, I think just the wringing of hands that it's 100%, it's done, he's not coming back. I think that's just based on fan paranoia, and basically it's, the Atlanta fan can't get over themselves, right? It's like, oh, we're just never going to win. We never win anything. Well, I mean, the Braves win the World Series. Georgia wins the national championship, and here we are crying about, oh, Freddie Freeman's going to sign with somebody else. Why can't anything good happen to us? Something good happened. You got the ring, got the championship. Like, calm down a minute. I think it's going to be okay either way, but I don't know where the reports of it's a foregone conclusion he's not coming back to the Braves is coming from. Well, no, I do know where it's coming from. It's coming from teams that want to sign him. So if you leak that out there, hey, we don't think he's going to go back to the Braves. Well, then what does that do? That gets us excited that maybe he's going to come to our team. Clickbait.
Yeah, I think, Kevin, I think you just said it too. I mean, people don't want to admit this. The Braves going to be fine either way. I mean, you want him. I'm not trying to act like you don't want Freddie Freeman back. But once again, okay, right? The Yankees don't reset the market. They operate in their own market. What the Yankees gonna give anybody, ain't nobody else trying to give them. So they operate in their own little way of doing things. They offered Freddie Freeman the highest paid deal for a first baseman in baseball. That is not saying that ain't what he wanted, BJ. I ain't saying that. But they say we gave you $5 million more than the next highest paid, than the initial highest paid first baseman. I agree with Kevin, though. People don't know what negotiations are. Look, Alex Anthopoulos has said this. We love Freddie Freeman. I love Freddie Freeman. But we're dealing with a certain amount of money that we can give him. You know why? There's a guy by the name of Ronald Acuna who's going to want more money one day. If I give it all to him, I can't give it all to him. And baseball, just like any sport, is a year-by-year sport, right? Freddie Freeman has never fallen off. Never. It's a possibility. I don't think he's gonna do it because he's missing like dependable. He's about as consistent as he can be. The Braves said, "What did you do when you had Freddie Freeman, the best first baseman in baseball? We won a World Series with him. You did it. You did it. You didn't waste his talent. You didn't waste his time. And what did you give him at the end? The highest paid contract for a first baseman. That's what you. Yeah. So if he says no, it will not be because the Braves disrespected him. That is not what they've done. I am telling you." Everybody says this. When it ain't your money, give it to them. When it is, wait a minute, hold on, slow down. I want Freddie. Listen, I only wear 8-time down. I only wear Atlanta Braves hats. Freddie Free. I got a Freddie Freeman hat. I want him back. But just know this. Just know this, Braves faithful. If he doesn't come back, you know what that's called? Business. That's all it is. That's anybody. That's all it is. Because BJ, I know you think it's disrespectful. They don't want to give him what they give him. It's not disrespectful. That ain't how the Braves front office give money. That ain't how they spend it. If anybody was going to break that, I would think it would be Freddie Freeman. But they won in his current contract based off what they did at the trade deadline. It was Rosario and company. But all I'm saying is, I do hope they come back with a counter offer. It will not be what Freddie Freeman wants.
All right, put a percentage on it. Both of you. What are the chances with all the reports out there? And Kevin, I think you're right. It's hard to know kind of what is really happening when you haven't had baseball and there's been a lockout, but put a percentage on it here. What are the chances Freddie Freeman's back with the Atlanta Braves?
I'll say 80-20. And I say that because, again, the Braves are, as Ben said, they gave him an offer. It wasn't the 6 years, but he would still be the highest paid first baseman going out there. He wants the security of the 6 years. Obviously, that will push him towards the end of his career. And again, I'm like Ben. So far, Freddie has given you nothing to believe his production is going to fall off. But I will give you Albert Pujols and Miguel Cabrera. Long-term deals, huge deals with Detroit and the Angels. And those are two teams that have gone absolutely nowhere. Oh, they're getting paid, but they're going nowhere. And the Angels actually traded Pujols because he wasn't performing up to standard. And obviously they end up having to eat a good bit of that money because Albert Pujols signed that 10-year deal when he came over from the Cardinals. So I think if you're the Braves, and again, people go, well, to what Ben said, oh, you got to give they gave Acuna a 10-year deal. I know people go, oh, he's locked up. I'm sorry. I told you from the beginning, BJ, temporary security, long-term gain for Ronald Acuna. Give him that 10-year. Everybody says they lowballed him. I think the Braves did that knowing good and well, hey, we got a deal now, but if that kid goes out and wins an MVP in the next 2 or 3 years, it's going to be renegotiation time, and he's going to get more cash. No question. No question. I just don't think the Braves are going to do him like that, where you say, hey, you got 10 years, $100 million. Oh, yeah, you got a heck of a deal. Heck of a deal, Braves. And i.e. when Freddie Freeman starts to fall off the roster, they're going to renegotiate and make sure Ronald Acuna sticks around with the Atlanta Braves. I would be willing to bank it all that that's going to happen, and he's going to get a better deal, and he will get one of those outlandish deals, maybe not $50 million, but he's going to get a huge deal to make sure he stays with the Atlanta Braves. Well, if you do that, I don't know if you look out and say, hey, we're wanting to do that 3-4 years from now, and in that first year's of contract, we're going to give Acuna $38-39 million and Freddie Freeman that's $60 million for two players. Braves have traditionally not done that. I'll be interested to see kind of what they're thinking is once this CBA gets done. But I say 80-20, he comes back. Always a possibility, and he goes and takes the money, wants to go back to California, whatever. And again, I'm not faulting any of that. But I think first and foremost, both sides have said they want to be in mutual partnership. I think it's going to happen 80-20. I'll say 80% he comes back.
I mean, I'm always a 50-50 guy, no matter who it is. I mean, no matter what player it is. But I will say the one thing that's on the Braves side is, and I know people don't think this matters, the culture of that dugout, man, the culture of that team, it matters, man. It's not like, look, once again, we talking about another man's pockets, right? But they're not disrespecting Freddie Freeman. They're not. Because think about this, they don't even give the type of money they're trying to give to Freddie Freeman. They don't even do that. That's how you know the Braves. So the Braves are already saying, look, man, we're willing to give you what we typically don't do because we want to keep you around. We appreciate your contribution to this team, especially when we were bottom feeders, and now we upper echelon. But that's based on what they've done around Freddie Free with also having Freddie Free now. It ain't just Freddie Free. And I know he's the one now. He is the key component. But I just think sometimes too, BJ, is you give one guy a bunch of money and you get to the trade deadline and you got to wait and see who you can afford, not who you want to get. You don't find yourself in the World Series what the Braves just did. They want to try to be, in this thing year in and year out, which I think they will be. Hope Freddie Free's back, but it's always 50-50, man, because like I said, once you win that chip, you want your bread after that. And hopefully, the amount of money the Braves giving him is worth it. Plus that, plus the locker room, plus a healthy Ronald Acuna Jr. But we'll see.
What's the latest? We'll find out from RJ Anderson of CBS Sports. He will join us next. It's 3 and Out on the Southern Pigskin Radio Network. Back here with you, 3 and Out on the Southern Pigskin Radio Network on a Wednesday afternoon. The lockout for Major League Baseball continues. Also, once the lockout is over, we'll find out what's happening with Freddie Freeman. With us now to talk about both those topics from CBS Sports, RJ Anderson joins us on the show. RJ, good afternoon. How are you?
I'm doing well. How about yourself?
Doing good. Thanks so much for coming on. What's the latest on the lockout? How close are we to having spring training and ultimately having baseball?
Yeah, it's still kind of undecided. There's still some major chips that need to fall before we can reach an agreement and before we can get spring training and the regular season underway. And, if you've been paying attention this week, one of the things that hasn't been discussed at all so far is the idea of the competitive balance tax, or the CBT. That's going to be a big point of interest because it's a hot button issue for both sides. And until they make some progress on that, we're just not going to get a deal.
I was going to say, RJ, are all these other issues kind of fluff compared to that CBT, which obviously could be a back and forth? If you're the common baseball fan, once you hear, hey, they came out of the meetings today and started talking about the CBT, does that mean we're finally getting somewhere?
Yeah, it was tough to hear you, so I apologize if I didn't get your question 100% correct. But I think you said, are we finally getting somewhere with the talks? Is that right?
I was going to say, if the fans here coming out of one of the meetings, we finally hear the words, they were talking about the CBT, does that mean we're getting closer to finally getting somewhere once that comes up in the negotiations?
Yeah, once we actually start making some progress on the CBT, then, we're probably getting close to the point where things can progress rapidly. But realistically, they are very far apart with the CBT, or they were very far apart the last time they discussed it and swap proposals on it. So I'm not sure if it's going to be something that you're going to see resolved in a day or two. However, like I said, once you do get resolution on that, the rest of it should fall into place pretty quickly.
RJ, the situation with Freddie Freeman is obviously going to be one that's obviously everybody going to be watching because of what he's meant to this Braves organization. But if he does indeed not take the offer, I mean, the Braves faithful shouldn't feel any type of way. They should just chop it up to it's just business, right?
Yeah, I mean, that's a tough one because, if you're the general manager of a team, you have to keep that 1,000-foot view, and you can't necessarily get lost in, the emotions of it or what have you. And I guess if you're ever going to let a franchise player leave, it would be with the backdrop of just winning a World Series title and perhaps being able to acquire someone like Matt Olson. But that doesn't necessarily make it easier. I mean, if you're a Braves fan, you probably wanted to see Freddie Freeman retire with the team like Chipper Jones did and like some of these other all-time greats. So, we can say it's just business, but maybe sometimes we say it's just business too often in the sport.
RJ Anderson, CBS Sports, here with us on 3 and Out. So if Freddie Freeman goes elsewhere, what options do the Atlanta Braves have? Are there big name potential first basemen they could go after?
Yeah, I think the two names you're going to hear connected to them most often are going to be, number one, Matt Olson. I just mentioned him. He's with the Oakland Athletics. He has 2 more years of team control remaining before he's a free agent. And he is just a massive slugger and also a Gold Glove Award winner. And also, he really cut down into a strikeout rate last season, suggesting maybe he's coming into a different threshold of performance. Maybe he's like a legitimate MVP candidate going forward, as opposed to a guy who, while still quite good, isn't quite on that level. And then the other option I think people are going to naturally connect the Braves with is Anthony Rizzo. You probably know him from his days with the Cubs. He also was traded to the Yankees last July. He's, I think, a downgrade compared to Freeman. He doesn't have Olson's ceiling. He also will come a lot cheaper. And, if you feel comfortable with his back issues that he's had in the past, and if you think, maybe there's still one more big season left in him, then maybe you look to him as a one-year stopgap type solution.
RJ Anderson joining us here, CBS Sports. RJ, how wild could free agency be once we get a deal out of Major League Baseball with so many guys sitting there yet to be signed?
Yeah, we have a lot of big names who still need to find homes. We just talked about Rizzo, but you really, of course, but you also have guys like Carlos Correa, who for me, he was the top free agent available this winter, and we didn't really get a lot of movement on him before the lockout went into effect. And don't forget, as I referenced with Olson, the Oakland Athletics are going to trade away most of their core once the lockout ends. So you're going to talk about Olson. You have guys like Matt Chapman on that roster. Sean Manea, Chris Bassett. There are a lot of good players who still have to find new homes ahead of, whatever the 2022 season ends up looking like.
RJ, who you think has the upper hand right now when you talk about this CBA? I know those type of things usually favor the owners because, sitting at the negotiating table is what they do all the time. But how much is this going to come down to making sure that not necessarily, these big name guys like, Trout and Harper and those guys, but how much is this going to come down to making sure you're taking care of the 24th and 25th guy on the roster?
Yeah, I think that's a good point that the owners probably do have the leverage just because, number one, we're talking about some of the richest people in the country. So, they're probably not going to be dreading missing a check the way players might. And then number two, the court of public opinion is almost always against the players because we see their salaries reported. We know how much Mike Trout makes. We know how much Bryce Harper makes. You don't necessarily know how much the owner of the Tampa Bay Rays is pocketing or the owner of the Pittsburgh Pirates. So I think those two factors always make it a little easier on the owners. And, to your point, though, the union and some of the proposals they've made are designed now to, raise the minimum salary and make it so younger players are getting paid earlier because, the way baseball's compensation system is set up, you basically have to play for, 6 years before you hit the open market and get your just due. And I think that, we've seen in the last decade or so, the best players are usually, in the early 20s or the mid 20s. And it's probably not fair that a guy like Juan Soto, for instance, has to wait until he's, almost 30 years old to get his just due, So they've been, trying to make trying to make gains in that regard. They're not necessarily going to accomplish everything they wanted to because, again, the owners do have a leverage, but, they're at least trying.
RJ, what are we looking at in terms of a date where the regular season becomes the start of the regular season, the full 162 becomes potentially up in the air? I know we've missed spring training. That's one thing, but is there a point on the calendar where if an agreement is not reached, you start to think, okay, we're going to miss real regular season baseball games?
Yeah, I would say it's probably next week. You can say February 28th or, maybe in a few days that follow. If we don't have an agreement by then, you're talking about probably having a compromised regular season, not just in start time, but also perhaps in duration. So, it doesn't leave a lot of time for them to reach an agreement. But I'll remind you, the owners are the ones who started the lockout on December 2nd, and it took them 6 weeks to make a proposal to the players. So if you're looking for someone to blame for the slow-moving pace, it's really on the owners.
RJ, there is I believe, a history of this happening. I know Major League Baseball came out and put out a February 28th deadline to have a deal done. Any chance if there's not a deal done, they lift the lockout and say, we're going to negotiate in good faith, and if you don't believe us, go ahead and put it in your court and you can strike on us?
I don't, because I think that, if they were to do that, you're basically talking about operating under the sunset terms of the last CBA. And one of the things the owners are really fighting for, as I mentioned earlier, was the CBT, and they value what's become essentially a salary cap. And under the sunset terms of that CBA, there is no CBT. So that would seem to kind of go in contrast to what they're working toward. And so I think that it's unlikely that would happen. But, I would also point out that, the league intentionally locked out the players to prevent them from gaining leverage with a strike. That's one of the big things the union can use as a weapon, as a cudgel. And, taking away leverage, that was the entire purpose of the so-called defensive lockout. They really just didn't want the players to have as much leverage as they could have otherwise. So I think it's unlikely they would give them back to them on a silver platter.
And RJ, worst case scenario, how many games you see being missed in the regular season before both come back to the table and say, listen, man, let's try to get this thing settled before we lose this fan base that we've had over all these years, because now with it being so much variety as far as like sports now, you don't want to lose your core base, right?
Yeah, that's a great question, and I wish I knew the answer to it, but realistically, I don't know. It's just 2 years ago with the pandemic season, we saw that the owners are kind of willing to take fewer games as long as they get the postseason payout, and they're fighting for expanded postseason in the CBA talks to get a greater payout. So I think they would probably look at it as sort of an investment in getting what they want, not only the upcoming season, but also the next 4 to 5 years that follow as part of the CBA. So I don't know. I wish I had an answer for that one. I hope it's not a ton of games because, like you said, you don't want to corrode a fan base that frankly has already decayed a little bit over the last decade plus. And I don't know. I just don't have a good answer, unfortunately.
RJ, how do you think the fans around the country are responding to this? Are they okay at large as long as no regular season games are missed?
Yeah, I would guess that's probably, the threshold for a lot of fans is, you don't want to compromise the regular season. We just, like I just said, we went through that 2 years ago where we had a 60-game season that didn't quite feel real. And, people want 162 games. That's baseball nowadays. So, I don't think anyone, players, players included, I don't think they want to miss regular season action. But at the same time, you have to take a different perspective on this. And it's that one of the, strongest unions in professional sports, perhaps the strongest union in professional sports is, fighting to get, the majority of their union better working conditions. And, it's not always pretty, but, if you're a worker yourself, you can kind of identify with organized labor taking that kind of stand, even if it's, like I said, not always pretty.
RJ Anderson joining us here on 3 and Out. RJ, finally, do you feel like there's actual progress that they're meeting every day? I know people have kind of focused on that. Hey, at least they're talking. Do you think there's actually goodwill on both sides, or at the end of the day, there's a point where this is what we want as players, we're not budging. This is what the owners say they want, and we're not budging, and somebody's going to have to give, and nobody wants to.
Yeah, I guess it depends on how you define progress, because the sides have ceded a little bit on issues that are not necessarily the top of the list here. I keep harking on the CBT, but that's going to be the big one, because what the owners are proposing in regards to the CBT is basically they want to cap salaries, and they want that while players give them an expanded postseason that would improve their revenues. So they kind of want it both ways. And I don't know how that's going to go. When we first see that CBT proposal on the owner's side, we'll see. If they back down a little bit, maybe there's enough wiggle room there that, we can call it legitimate progress. But if they are mostly sticking to their guns, I think it's going to be difficult to call this progress, even if, at least progress on a meaningful level. Like I said earlier, they have agreed on some smaller issues, but, it just seems like they're waiting on the iceberg, so to speak, because it sinks the ship.
RJ, I did have one more follow-up to that, because obviously, as you said, the players don't want the proposed cap with the CBT, the competitive balance tax in Major League Baseball. But are you surprised that the players haven't at least pushed for a floor like we see in other leagues like the NFL? You have to spend 97% of the cap, where there's no spending floor that would eliminate, like the Orioles or Marlins, spending on an entire roster what a guy like Max Scherzer is making in a season. Are you surprised if players haven't countered with, hey, if you're going to cap us on one end, we're going to make sure you at least spend a certain amount on salaries to make yourself competitive?
Yeah, I believe that actually came up early on. I don't remember which proposal number it was or what have you, but I believe that the idea of the floor came into play. Now, the problem is the league wanted a lower cap. So I don't remember the numbers, like I said, but it was significantly lower than what they're proposing now. So it's one of those things where you have to kind of do the math and try to figure out, okay, we're essentially suppressing our own wages here. Is it worth it to raise the floor? And obviously the union thought not. You can agree or disagree with that, but it's probably a little bit more complex than just installing the floor, even though I do agree that would be probably beneficial in terms of trying to get some of these, how do I say, cheap teams to actually spend their money instead of pocket the revenue. But again, it just depends on the cap and the math and all that good stuff.
RJ Anderson, CBS Sports, our guest, the latest on the lockout, also has a story up options for the Braves if Freddie Freeman leaves in free agency. RJ, thanks so much for the time.
Thank you for having me.
We'll have to wait and see how close MLB and the MLBPA are at resolving the lockout. We'll come back with more 3 and Out on the Southern Pigskin Radio Network. Back here with you on 3 and Out on February 23rd. What's a very, very difficult day, Ahmaud Arbery Day, 2 years since the murder of Ahmaud Arbery, and a number of memorials honoring him today. I know people are encouraged to walk 2.23 miles in his honor, and just an unthinkable act. His murder 2 years ago. We continue to pray for him, his family, the community, and I know more on this momentarily, but just a very, very difficult day.
Yeah, it is. And listen, my condolences always go out to his mother and father. His mother in particular, for the courage that she continues to show, being able to have scholarship opportunities for high schoolers in the Brunswick area. What she's doing for kids in the Atlanta area, just the poise, just the grace that she is showing. I mean, we all lose family members, man. I couldn't even imagine losing a child the way she lost her son. But like I said, I mean, when you talk about being able to show what you made of, I give her so much credit for for how much courage she's showing. But yes, Ahmaud Arbery Day is the day. Make sure you get to 2.3 miles in. Do not walk behind me because it's gonna take me a little longer to get mine in, Kevin and BJ. But it will get done. I might have to stretch it out. But Ahmaud, we're gonna miss you, man. And it's rough because we felt like the last couple of years we knew him with so much we heard about him, but we send our hearts and prayers out to his family. And like I said, man, the justice system got it right twice, but I think this is something that's going to live on forever because of the impact he made on those that knew him and those that didn't know him.
And we'll come back with more on that. 3 and Out, BJ Bennett, Kevin Thomas, Ben Troop here with you all across the Southern Pigskin Radio Network. We are also streaming live on the web, espncoastal.com. It is 3 and Out on the Southern Pigskin Radio Network. BJ Bennett alongside Kevin Thomas and Ben Troop. Kevin getting ready for some high school basketball later. Benedictine in the state playoffs. We'll have that for you in our Savannah Hilton Head Market coming up in just a little bit. We'll chat with Kelly Quinlan of jacketsonline.com in about 15 minutes. Spring practice is underway at Georgia Tech. The Yellow Jackets have had some attrition in the transfer portal, 3-9 last season. Probably need to have a good spring practice heading into a schedule that is one of the toughest in the country coming up in 2022. But today, a very difficult day, as we mentioned. Ahmaud Arbery Day, 2 years since his unthinkable murder. And we all just continue to pray for him, his family, for the community. A number of ceremonies today honoring him, and a set of 6 $3,000 scholarships. Wanda Cooper Jones, Ahmaud's mother, said that the Ahmaud Arbery Nonprofit Foundation will award to students at Brunswick High School, where Ahmaud graduated in 2012. The recipients will be announced on May 8th, which would have been Ahmaud's 28th birthday. Wanda Cooper Jones went on to say, quote, "We believe in helping to create opportunities for young Black men to further their education, to start a business, to simply build a life, something Ahmaud did not have the chance to do. Justice goes beyond judgment made in the courtroom. Justice ensures every child, no matter what their skin color, his socioeconomic situation, is safe and has equal opportunities to realize their dreams." So a lot to think about, a lot to reflect on, a lot to pray about today, needless to say.
Yeah, I just think sometimes, we don't give people enough credit for just how much courage and bravery they show. Ahmaud Arbery's mom is just paying it forward. I think, most of the time tragedy, you don't really grow from it. You just do your best to learn from it. She's using it as a catapult to do more for those young Black men around her in the communities that, she's grown up in and her son grown up in. Look, man, I salute her. I support her. And I encourage people like her to do the same. I think sometimes when we think of tragedy, man, we say, how do I become a better individual from this? How do I become a better me from this? How do I become a better being from this? And I think Ahmaud Arbery mom is just leading the way. She's showing the way, paving the way. So 6 $3,000 scholarships. I mean, for 6 incredibly deserving young men who's going to be getting it here really, really soon. But Ahmaud Arbery, like I said, man, he's a name that'll never ever, he's gone, and he's gone, obviously, but his spirit will live on. And we wish those that he left behind nothing but the best. We send him our hearts and prayers and condolences. But salute to Ahmaud Arbery's mom, man. She's saying, look, I'm gonna use this as a catalyst for good, and I support her and wish her nothing but the best in her efforts moving forward.
And I don't really have anything to add other than what's been said already. So I'll just echo what Ben and BJ have said. And that's, obviously a day to remember. I know and just I guess kind of as it worked out yesterday, you had the federal trial end with, 3 convictions on the federal hate crimes trial. Earlier, they were all convicted in the criminal case as well. And they will not be getting out anytime soon. For the rest of their lives, they will atone for what they did. So should have happened, should never happen again. And hopefully that is something that we all take from that look, that kind of stuff's not going to be acceptable at all. And I think that's again, that's really all I have to say about it is those kind of things. Look, hey, is an unspeakable thing that happened. It should not happen. It should not happen again. And the people responsible were held accountable for it and will spend the rest of their lives in prison.
Well, I'm just glad, justice was served. I think that's the biggest thing for me. A lot of cases have been wrongly put or wrongly, observed in the past. And that's what I like. And I like the quotes that the AJC said. Next, we must change the minds, the perception of Black men in the country. We are human as well. We're not animals. We're not anybody that's looking to danger anybody else. We're all the same. We're all in one. And I think, it's a travesty that this happened in the first place, but also at the same time, it opened up a lot of people's minds and a lot of things changed. And I like the fact that they were able to give scholarship backs to the young ones at the high school to propel their future and all that good stuff. So I'm glad, justice was served. That's the biggest thing for me.
Powerful perspective, Cam. And we just continue to pray, Ben, Kevin, for Ahmaud, for his family, for the community. Again, Ahmaud Arbery Day, 2 years since his unthinkable murder. And I know in just a moment, we did this at the start of the show. Christian and PJ on second down had a 23-second moment of silence. We want to do that here in just a moment, but just take some time today to think, to pray, to reflect, to remember. And this 2 years since his murder, just unfathomable, unthinkable, and we just continue to offer our thoughts and prayers. And with that said, we will, before we go to break here on 3 and Out, have a 23-second moment of silence in honor of Ahmaud. We'll come back. We'll talk some more sports, but here on Ahmaud Arbery Day, a 23-second moment of silence in his honor. Back here with you on 3 and Out on the Southern Pigskin Radio Network. Spring practices around college football. Some teams are underway, including the Georgia Tech Yellow Jackets, and had some roster attrition via the transfer portal. Obviously, you've not had the success that Jeff Collins has wanted yet in Atlanta, but still a lot of talent coming back to this team in an important spring. And with us now to talk about the Yellow Jackets from jacketsonline.com, Kelly Quinlan. Kelly, good afternoon. How are you?
I'm good. How you guys doing?
Doing great. Thanks for coming on. Georgia Tech, a lot of questions. You do have some talent returning. What's the big storyline in your mind as spring practice starts in Atlanta?
Obviously, I think it starts with the new offensive coordinator, Chip Long, and him trying to install his system and kind of all the ins and outs of that. You know, they're down to one returning quarterback in Jeff Sims, a starter. The other two kids they have for spring ball are Zach Pyron and Zach Gibson. Zach Pyron's a true freshman, and Zach Gibson's a transfer from the MAC. So, you know, that's going to be a totally different thing. The offensive line's, you know, going to feature multiple new starters. So I think there's a lot of different pieces there. That's sort of where I start with. And then I think the other big area of change is the secondary, where, you know, 4 of the starters of the 5 starters have moved on. 3 are pursuing professional careers, and Wesley Walker, the other one, transferred, leaving. Zamari Walton is the only guy back who is sort of a consistent starter along with Miles Sims. Those 2 guys sort of split it. So there's a whole new group, a new secondary coach. You got 6 on the field defensive assistant changes for the 10 spots. So a lot sort of in flux there, and a lot of teaching to go on. And I think that's why Jeff Collins wanted to go so early, you know, starting in late February instead of, you know, maybe the second week of March.
Kelly, you look at the transfers that Georgia Tech has had in the last week or so, post obviously early signing period, post signing day in February. What do you read into that, if any, including some comments that maybe, hey, I think was Jordan Dominic concerned about the kind of the stability in the program, if it were. How much do you read into the fact that guys are transferring right here before spring practice?
So essentially what these guys did, and I've talked to several sources about this, it was not necessarily a surprise they were leaving. They wanted to get their workouts in without having to go through spring ball. They wanted to stay in shape, get their academic stuff taken care of, and then transfer out. So sort of not necessarily a bait and switch, but those kids sort of had been planning to leave all along, and it wasn't necessarily the unknown constant. I think it's one of the issues they have right now with the transfer portal. I think you're seeing people, and it's hard to blame a kid, right? Like a coach can leave anytime they want. Well, you have kids leaving at weird times, kids leaving in the middle of the season, stuff like that. I think there needs to probably be some clampdowns on when you can go into the portal and how all of that works and how many times you can enter the portal. And, you know, most of the guys who've left, other than Jahmyr Gibbs, you know, to be honest with you, like, none of them move the needle a ton for me. I think Jordan Dominic's a talented pass rusher, but doesn't really fit their scheme. He's more of an outside linebacker. Needs to be playing standing up. I think they're just, you know, Jared Ivey's a guy that was, you know, has a lot of talent, but hasn't produced very much. They had the lowest sack total, Jordan Dominic and Jared Ivey, of any defensive end combo in the ACC last year. And it was dramatically less. Like Duke had twice as many sacks as those 2 guys with their starting defensive end, and Duke was horrible. So to me, like, if the guys don't want to be here, you want them out of your program. And clearly those guys, Georgia Tech was not as important as whatever else they had going on, so they left. And ultimately that's, you know, probably good for your program at the end of the day. But when Jeff Collins got to win now, it's a little bit tough to lose some of that experience.
Kellen, when you think about this offense, I mean, obviously Sims, as you mentioned, is the only experienced quarterback you got coming back, but sometimes we don't really realize just how stable the offense you had was when you look at, you know, that triple and how well it kind of helped the defense out. What is going to be the offensive identity this year, especially with a guy like Jahmyr Gibbs deciding to move on to Alabama, and you got a guy in Sims you can build around, but do you have the weapons? Do you have the weapons to kind of complement his skill set?
So they have 2 pretty good running backs. They have Dante Smith, who, you know, would have started at most other programs in the ACC last year over, you know, he was stuck behind Jahmyr Gibbs and great numbers, one of the top Pro Football Focus numbers in really all of college football last year, and among the tops in the ACC. Just really productive when he was on the field. He'll be the bell cow, and then you'll have a kid named Hassan Hall, who's an Atlanta kid that went to Louisville, was kind of a third down back, kick return guy, will do everything. He fits in nicely too with what Chip Long does. What Chip Long wants to do is control the ball, and he likes to control the ball through various ways: running the football, playing with tempo without substitution. So like keeping the same personnel on the field, but arranging them differently, like flexing players out. They have some good flexibility there with guys like there's a guy named PJ Harris who's played wide receiver, slot, and can also play tight end for them. He was a guy that was recruited by Paul Johnson, just a big physical receiver. That guy can line up anywhere on the field, right? Like they have some creativity and all of that they can use in Chip Long's system to create some mismatches. I think that's what they're going to try to do, and they're trying to be more successful. And ultimately, the big problem that they had both on offense and defense the last 3 years is there was no consistency, right? Like there was no consistency with the defense from series to series, and the offense would go 3 and out a lot. And when you do that, put so much pressure on your defense, on your special teams. It just ends up becoming really an untenable situation. I think that's what's gone on and led them to, they should have won 7 games last year and they won 3. I think a lot of that just had to do with how ineffective the offense was at times and the defense, not having any confidence in them and not playing together as a group. And those are the things Jeff Collins is trying to change right now. And, the clock's ticking for him too.
Online, Kelly Quinlan, Jackets Online, here with us on 3 and Out. Georgia Tech spring practice is underway. The ACC, the last couple of years especially, has been a conference dominated by quarterback play. Jeff Sims now has some experience, really talented guy. What are the expectations for him, and how big is this spring for Sims?
Yeah, I think it's huge for Jeff. They need him to level up. He's a guy with tremendous talent, both as a runner and a passer. All the physical gifts, can make all of the different types of throws physically. He just hasn't put it quite together on the field. They haven't been consistent in protecting him at times. And he, the one thing I think Chip will do a good job, Chip Long will do with him, is coming up with ways for him to get the ball out quicker, get, quicker reads, quicker decisions. So he's not having to stand back there and make a lot of judgments for long periods of time. And when they are doing it, set up off play action or good protection, max X, I think, they were trying to be a little too pass happy before with what they were doing with Jeff, and he just was not there, and the protection wasn't there. And I think that's going to be a big difference for him if they can build his confidence early on, because he is such a dynamic weapon. And when plays break down, he has some of that Lamar Jackson kind of ability to make things happen on the move. He hasn't shown it as much as he can, and that's kind of where he's got to level it up himself. I think he has a lot of potential to be one of the better quarterbacks in the ACC. He's just got to get everything right between the ears.
Kelly Quinlan joining us here on 3 and Out. And Kelly, you look at defensively, a lot of talk about that side of the football. You mentioned the defensive end of rushers, but you kind of changed defensive coordinators, but kind of didn't. How do you think that dynamic's going to work there on the defensive side of the ball? And really, being that Jeff Collins is a defensive coach, how surprised are you that unit hasn't been even respectable in a lot of games?
Yeah, Jeff Collins has spent a lot of time trying to work on things other than maybe the thing he's best at. And I think at the end of the day, your head coach, you've got to focus on the thing you're best at. He made his bones as a defensive coach. He's going to have his hands all over the defense. Andrew Thacker's still going to call it, still the scheme, but Jeff's going to be in all the meetings and is going to be right there. He brought in David Turner, the former Florida D-line coach who worked for him at Mississippi State, who knows Jeff's defense as well. So he's going to have a hand in it. And then Travaris Tillman, the new DB's coach from Michigan State, will have a hand in it as well. So I think they're going to have, to me, when I look at the group on paper, the defense looks better to me from a coaching standpoint and a depth standpoint than they have, maybe 2-3 years ago. So now is the time where you have to start to see some of that come to fruition and then make some plays. And the front seven looks a lot better as well. So it's got to start to come together, or it's going to come apart. And this is what Jeff's known as a defensive coach. You can't be bad on defense when you're a defensive coach.
And Kelly, I mean, I know it's going to be a daunting task when you think about how crazy or how hard this schedule is for Georgia Tech. But what does Jeff Collins got to do to kind of save his job, to kind of show some promise, in this coming season?
I think if they can turn what were the 4 swing games this past year that went to L's, get 6-7 wins, not get just completely obliterated by Georgia. I think that's a step in the right direction. I don't know what they're going to see from Clemson in game 1. That's tough, and Ole Miss is really difficult in week 3. Even the game at Central Florida is tough. I mean, you look at their schedule. They open with Clemson, they play Western Carolina, and then they play Ole Miss and at Central Florida and at Pitt. That's their opening 5 games. They're probably their 5 toughest games, or 4 of their 5 toughest games of the season, with Georgia being the other one. So, to me, when I look at it, if you can come out of that opening SWAT, even like 2-3, positionable, and you have some momentum. If they're 1-4, I think he's in a lot of trouble.
What are the expectations internally? Because Kelly, as we're chatting with Kelly Quinlan, jacketsonline.com, I know a lot of the pre-spring or spring power rankings are coming out, and Georgia Tech not necessarily very high, but you mentioned the swing games last year. Inside the program, do the Yellow Jackets feel like they're close and better than people maybe are giving them credit for looking ahead to this fall?
Yeah, I think they do. That's one of the things that Jeff can't say. Like, it just comes across as sort of a false narrative when you're like, we're this much closer. I think the argument that Tech fans would make is the drop off shouldn't have been as big to start with, where you were at 3 games or whatever. But they had 2 games the first year that they'll last year. They had the COVID season where they played a really weird schedule. And then this past year, you have basically 4 games that you screw up where you had a chance to win multiple times and couldn't get it done. And, really won 1 close game last year, and the rest of them were all, sort of the other 2 wins were blowouts. So, to me, yeah, they got to start to figure it out. I mean, this is an interesting stat about them. Georgia Tech has not won back-to-back games since the 2018 season. Paul Johnson's last year, his last 2 wins as head coach were back-to-back wins. So I think it was like Virginia Tech was the last time they did that. They beat them. So you're going back a long ways to just have a 2-game win streak. So I think putting together solid games every week. And, the one thing with Jeff Collins' program, a little maddening too, is you've seen a lot of sort of up and down, where one week they'll play really well, and then the next week they come out flat, struggle a little bit. So you want to see a consistent product every week, and that's been a struggle as well. And it started last year in the season opener with Northern Illinois, who ended up winning the MAC, but they just did not. They look flat. They look like a disinterested team. You can't do that. So it's going to be interesting to see. If there's a lot riding on all these guys. And ultimately, Jeff, this is sort of it for him as a head coach. Like, if this doesn't go well at his age, it's going to be difficult for him to get another job as a head coach. He's going to have to go back to being the defensive coordinator somewhere. So he's got a lot riding on it too. And it seems like, from talking to him, he's doing all the right things, saying all the right things. They're spending money in the right way on staff. I just, I wish for his sake that he had done this 2-3 years ago instead of now, but hindsight's 2020, and I don't think maybe he even grasped how different the job was from when he was there, 10 years prior, and how far back Georgia Tech had fallen just in terms of staff pay, things like that, from the rest of the league the last few years, because they're still in the bottom of the ACC and staff compensation and a lot of other things. And it's not like the cost of living in Atlanta is cheap compared to a lot of other places. So it's kind of one of the interesting sort of quirks about Georgia Tech. There's a lot of demands, but the investments maybe not been what it needs to be from the leadership.
Kelly, obviously, he's a guy that's came in with a lot of fanfare, trying to build up the hype around the program as well. And obviously, fans want that to transition to wins. Is that going to be possible in the ACC? It seems like the Coastal Division, if you were going to turn it around relatively quickly, that might be one. There's not a Clemson standing in your way. I know Pitt was good this last year, but They lose their quarterback, and I think prior to this year, it had been 7 different winners of the ACC Coastal in 7 years. So everybody's won it. I mean, how quickly, if he just gets the right buy-in and the right transfers that have come in, could he actually turn this around in the Coastal Division?
I mean, they could win Coastal. That's not that's they could have been in the mix last year. Really Pitt. It all comes down to, I think, Pittsburgh and how good or bad they are with their transfer quarterback from USC. Can he play? Can their new offensive coordinator harness things? Can they put together a good offense? If they do, or do a pretty good coach, I think they would be there. And after that, Mario Cristobal's had trouble just putting together a staff. I mean, they are a complete mess. Virginia Tech's pretty much a complete rebuild, as is Duke. Virginia also pretty much in a complete rebuild. So start to look around. UNC just lost Sam Howell. They still have yet to have even a coherent looking defense and all their time with Mac Brown. I just, there's no one on there you're like, oh, that's a really tough game. And they play Florida State towards the end of that could be an interesting game because you could have Mike Norvell and Jeff Collins both coaching for their jobs in that one. So you don't know really what's going to happen. That could even be an interim coach game for all we know, by that point for both those guys. So, it's such a weird season. The ACC, the way it sets up for Tech, look at that Pitt game and the Clemson, they get their 2 hardest games out of the way immediately, and then they play everybody else. So, if they can split the Clemson Pitt game, I think they have a really good shot at being in the Coastal mix and having a chance to go to Charlotte.
Kelly Quinlan, jacketsonline.com. Our guest, Georgia Tech spring practice is underway. Kelly, thanks so much for the time.
No problem, guys.
And Georgia Tech, look, brutal schedule, guys. We've talked about that. You have some key players returning. I think that Jeff Sims has the potential to be one of the best quarterbacks in the conference. Defensively, you've got to make some more plays. But it's interesting to hear Kelly say the depth is better. The overall talent is better. Ben, what are your expectations for a team that 9-25 in 3 years? Got to be better than that this fall.
Absolutely got to be better. I think I agree with Kelly. You got to win some of those swing games. I know we just chop it up because of the record, don't always show. I mean, to think about it, they should have beat Clemson last year, and they should have. I mean, it doesn't mean they're going to make a bowl game, but you beat Clemson, right? You beat Northern Illinois. That puts you at 5. Maybe you get it. Maybe you get that other swing game and get to 6. Jeff Collins going to be coaching for his job. Let's just call it what it is. And maybe that brings out a certain level of desperation for those players. So we'll see what happens. You coach with who's there. And I like Kelly kind of giving us perspective of how those players, they kind of look like they just running, but them saying, hey, man, we want to be able to work out and not go in the spring. I wish them nothing but the best. But if Jeff Collins can do it with this schedule and this roster, we talking about contract extensions, maybe even ACC, maybe even college football coach of the year if he can win with this roster and make a bowl game. Kevin, if he can win with this roster, I'm talking about 6 wins. I mean, that's saying a whole lot when your only returning quarterback is Sims. Wow.
Yeah, we'll see. He's got a lot of work, obviously, out there in front of him to try to win, and I think 3-4 wins not going to get it done. And Ben, you know this. It's college football. Nobody cares how tough your schedule is. Hey, you could play Georgia every week, Alabama as your other games, and people are going to say, why can't you win 5 or 6? That's just going to be what they're going to say. And I think for Jeff Collins, that's where you're at. It's like, okay, who on the roster is left from the Paul Johnson era? So you can't use that as an excuse, right? You can't say, oh, I'm transitioning from the option. Well, okay, all his players are gone. Got to win some ball games.
Big spring. I think it's a big spring from a confidence standpoint. Kelly Quinlan on his Twitter has a projected depth chart up, so go check that out. But we'll have more talk of Georgia Tech the rest of the week as the Yellow Jackets are in spring ball. We'll come back with more. It's 3 and Out on the Southern Pigskin Radio Network. It is 3 and Out on the Southern Pigskin Radio Network. BJ Bennett, Cam Ursery alongside. Kevin Thomas getting ready for some high school basketball in our Savannah Hilton Head Market Benedictine in the state playoffs. The Cairo Syrup Makers, that game coming up in just a little bit. Cam, you and I, more so than anybody else up here, we love the mock drafts. I mean, you and I talk about the mock drafts. I get caught up. Ben and Kevin and Christian will tell me, listen, and PJ, they're changing. Like this is not necessarily reflective of what's going to happen with the draft. But we were talking about Daniel Jeremiah from the NFL Network, his latest mock draft. And I want to get to the Jaguars in a second. Evan Neal going number 1. You and I think that's the right pick. But to me, said it the other day on the show, and you and I were looking at it, this would be best case scenario for the Falcons in my mind, what Daniel has. Atlanta needs an edge rusher. They've needed pass rush help for as long as I've been in this industry. Daniel Jeremiah has Kayvon Thibodeau falling to Atlanta at 8. I mean, could it possibly get that would be amazing. I don't think that'll happen, but if it does, boy, that would give Atlanta a foundational superstar for years to come at that edge rusher spot.
If that happens, I'll probably come in office and do whatever dance video you guys asked me to do. I mean, that's a dream scenario. We're talking about a guy who, for the most part of the season, was the consensus number 1 pick. And they say, okay, Aiden Hutchinson has a good year. He doesn't play much. We'll fall him to 2. But you're talking about to 8. I mean, the Falcons need a lot, but we haven't had that type of pass rusher and I see where he has him listed as a wild card. I don't care if he's a wild card. If he's there at 8, you take him. I think he's a top 5 player in the draft, possibly top 3. His motor, I mean, he runs a 4.4, 4.5 at 6'6", whatever it is, 250. Can't really teach that. Kind of remind me of the Jadeveon Clowney height coming out of high school and college. So I'll be ecstatic for that.
And I like him better than Hutchinson. Look, I know Hutchinson had an incredible year, and the Ohio State game is what people look at with the tape. But Ben talked about this the other day with Kayvon Thibodeau, who I do think, like you said, 6'5", 6'6", 255, 262, whatever. He could play multiple schemes. I think 3-4, 4-3, whatever you need. But I love the fact that came in with the immediate overwhelming expectations, right? Number 1 recruit in the country, and lived up to it every year. And it wasn't just, with all due respect to Hutchinson, it wasn't just, a late season surge. It was true freshman, all eyes on you right away, dominate. You come back, what are you going to do for an encore? Dominate. You come back a year where people are saying maybe he's just getting ready for the draft, dominate. I think he is as good as it gets at edge rusher. I don't know that he's, when you think about the Jadeveon Clowneys, the Myles Garretts, I mean, I don't know that he's quite got the consensus of those guys. But for me, everything you can want, the size, the speed, came in right away, did it, maintained it. I think this guy's going to be a star, and I don't really understand the slide, but if it happens, I think this will be perfect. Kyle Hamilton, we've seen some mocks. I've seen a couple of mocks. Jermaine Johnson, who I like as well. I mean, how do you evaluate this? If you're Atlanta, would you be keeping an eye on a quarterback, or do you think it's defense? Do you think it's best player available? What's your philosophy?
I remember a few weeks ago I said quarterback, and then I looked at the free agency. They're losing 5 wide receivers to free agency with no cap space. So if you lose Ridley, you'll have 1 wide receiver on the roster. That was your 6th-round pick last year from Arizona State, who didn't play any snaps this year. So you got to bring Gage. You got to bring Zacchaeus back, some of those guys. But if I'm the Falcons, I'm not going quarterback unless one like Matt Corral, Malik Willis, or Kenny Pickett, those 3, maybe Sam Howell fall to me in the 2nd round. Sam Howell falls to me in like the late 2nd, early 3rd. Then maybe I take a QB. But if I'm the Falcons, I'm going best available. If I'm at 8 and I want a wide receiver, I trade back to 14, maybe in the 20s, and pick up another 2nd-round pick from one of those teams that want to move up and take a QB. But I don't think you take a QB at 8. I think you stay packed. Matt Ryan, even if you get rid of him, he's $32 million in dead money. You only get $8 million in cap space. I say take best available. Me personally, I was just talking to you about it. Sauce Gardner. That's kind of who I really want right now.
An incredible college career.
Yeah. I mean, he's great.
Ahmad Gardner, Derek Stingley. Do you think Gardner above Stingley right now?
Man, at first.
To pair with A.J. Terrell?
Yeah, to pair with A.J. Terrell, I would go Gardner only because A.J. Terrell is a little bit smaller. And I don't think you want 2 small corners. I think you need kind of a difference where you got one side, you got that big corner, kind of like Ahmad Gardner. He's 6'3", 200. You don't see a lot of corners that's like that can move the way he moves. And then you got A.J. Terrell.
Something ridiculous. and you may know more of the scouting report data, but I thought I saw something that said he didn't give up more than like 15 yards receiving in a game.
13. The most he gave up was 13. That was against Alabama.
Yeah, that's absurd.
And Alabama they still had Jamison Williams. He was lined up with them. Jamison Williams didn't have a catch. They were moving him around in space, motioning him to even though they had the Jim Thorpe Award winner Kobe Bryant on the other side. It's Alabama. They motion their guys and get them open. But I mean, this dude, I watched his tape the other night. It's about as best he could get. It reminds me of DeAndre Baker, but a little bit better and more agile, because we know Baker was a Jim Thorpe, a winner at Georgia. But this guy, he's the real deal. I would love to get him.
You mentioned wide receiver. I think one of the take 3 questions we had the other day was, who are your top wide receivers? Because this class is incredible, man. And look, Jamison Williams, you think about Drake London, you think about the 2 guys from Ohio State, Chris Olave and Garrett Wilson. I think George Pickens, we've seen with some mocks, maybe move into the late first round. Jalen Tolbert out of South Alabama, David Bell out of Purdue. I mean, this is an incredible, and that's not even mentioning the Justin Rosses and Mechie. And I mean, this is an incredible wide receiver class. Are there 1 or 2 guys in the first round? Because for me, it's Jamison Williams. I like the big play threat, 20 yards per catch in college with the volume of production he had with 15 touchdowns. That's what stands out to me. I think each of those guys have something to offer. But to me, I think the number 1 guy is Jamison Williams.
If Williams didn't get hurt in the national championship game against UGA, I would go Williams. I would obviously go Williams for obvious reasons. But in my humble opinion, I would more than likely go Treylon Burks. And the only
not even mention him.
Only reason why I would go Treylon Burks, I go off of potential and what I see. Some guys are not great in college, but they're really good in the NFL. I mean, he's 6'4", 225, runs a 4.4. Who does that remind you of? A.J. Brown, kind of Julio Jones.
I know Ben was saying maybe like an Anquan Bolden.
Anquan Bolden.
And he did it in the SEC
yeah,
West.
He did in the SEC West, and he put up the only bad game he had, and I don't think it was him having the bad game, but it was against Georgia. Everybody had a bad game against Georgia. Who didn't? But, I mean, this dude's 6'4", 225, runs a 4.4. He's a little raw, but I think he's a better version than DK Metcalf because he has better route running skills. And I think if he gets in the right position, we might be talking about he's the best wide receiver from this draft, because not only is he physical, but he runs just as fast as Jamison Williams, that's who I love. If he didn't tear his ACL, that would be my guy, because he is electric. But whoever gets him, that's going to be awesome. Mechie, he's going to fall because that ACL. That's going to be awesome.
You hate that for those
guys. And then Pickens, that's my sleeper. Pickens is and Justin Ross. I think those 2 are like uber talented guys. They just had a bad knack when it comes to injuries. Those are my 2 guys, though, that I'm looking at. Like, if you get them in the second round, and late in the second round, if you're the Falcons and Justin Ross is sitting there, why not take a crack at him?
BJ and Cam talking mock drafts. Daniel Jeremiah, NFL Network, his latest mock draft. Again, Kayvon Thibodeau out of Oregon, falling to Atlanta at 8. Evan Neal at 1. You've seen some other guys. I think you still see a few here and there mock drafts with Hutchinson or Thibodeau or maybe Charles Cross or Ika Mekwanu. But I think you and I agree, Evan Neal, the positional versatility we were talking about during the break, came in, started right away as a true freshman at Alabama, of all places, has played guard, center, and tackle. I think could very easily, because Jacksonville has Walker Little, Cam Robinson, and Jawan Taylor at tackle. I don't know that they're going to re-sign Cam Robinson, but I think they like Little a lot. He can play Neal can left tackle or right tackle, probably projects big picture as a left tackle. But do you think that's the right call, Evan Neal at 1?
Absolutely. I will say that's the right call. If you're serious about building the future with Trevor Lawrence and protecting him, it's definitely Evan Neal at 1. You have to make that happen. So I think that's the perfect pick.
We'll come back with more 3 and Out on the Southern Pigskin Radio Network. Big night of college basketball tonight, as you'll have Duke in action taking on Virginia. You'll have Kentucky, Auburn, 3 or 4 teams in the top 10 with some tough games. Cam, you and I have talked about this now that we're getting closer to March Madness. I know Gonzaga, I think still number 1 in the country. You and I both like Auburn. Duke, we'll see. Again, that's a tough game for them at Virginia tonight. Who in your mind are the front? I don't know that I'm sold on Gonzaga yet. It's hard to kind of get a feel for them when they're in these long winning streaks where they're not overwhelmingly challenged. Who in your mind are the front runners to be the favorites for the Final Four?
I'll have to go Gonzaga. They're number 1. They have a 6'7" guard and Strother that I believe in a lot. They got Drew Timmy and then Holmgren. They're deep. They're
and
long.
Chet's like a 7'3", like point forward or
7'3" point forward. Timmy is a 6'9" point forward, and then you have a 6'7" point guard. They're like the biggest team in the country, and they have the most experience. And I think last year's loss, kind of like what we saw one year when UNC lost to Villanova. Then the next year they come and they beat Gonzaga in the national championship. That experience is going to help them get there. I still have Auburn. They're uber talented. They're hungry. I like their team. And then I'm stuck a little bit between a couple of teams. I love Purdue. I don't know if you've seen them. They have a kid named Jaden Ivey. I think he's the best player in the country.
Yeah, it's a top 10 projected draft pick.
Yeah. They have him going on some mock drafts. They have him going 2 ahead of Bencaro and Holmgren because he's that good. I think he's the best player in the country. We're not going off of draft stock. He's the best player. I mean, he's putting up 20 and 10 some nights. I think Purdue's a sleeper, and then Kentucky and Duke. Both of them are young. They're both wild cards, but they have streaks where they get really hot and get really cold. If they get into March Madness where they're really hot, those might be the 2 best teams in the entire country, in my opinion. So I'll go with those 5 teams: Gonzaga, Auburn, Purdue, Kentucky, and Duke.
Keep an eye on Arizona. I'll throw them out there. You got Arizona from the West Coast too, up there, I think at 24-2. Last night, another bad loss for Georgia. The Tom Crean era is coming to a close. I think for a lot of people, maybe who are Georgia basketball fans, you look at Auburn and say Auburn's got a lot of Georgia guys on their roster. They're number 3 in the country. Kessler, Smith. They have Bruce Pearl in there. I know Georgia's going to have a big time coaching search coming up, but how does Georgia, I mean, you look in the SEC, for the longest time, it was, at least the perception was, oh, it's football only, but Kentucky's in the top 10. Auburn's in the top 5. Florida, of course, has been a national power. Arkansas is nationally ranked. I mean, what does Georgia need to do to get into that mix?
You got to keep guys at home. You're 6-22, 1-14 in conference play. You got to keep guys at home. If you go just a few hours out west to Auburn, you're seeing KD Johnson, Kessler, Jabari Smith. Those are guys. You had KD Johnson at your school last year. Let him go. The point guard for Kentucky, I forget his name, the 5'9" guard. He was at Georgia last year. You let him go. Kessler and Jabari Smith, they're right in the heart of Atlanta. Sandy Creek is what, 15, 20 minutes
Kessler
away from
was a legacy
Atlanta.
player, I think.
Yeah. Yeah, and Kessler, he went to North Carolina, then transferred to Auburn, but he went to Woodward Academy. That's right in the heart of Atlanta. You're in Athens. Athens is what, an hour away from Atlanta. You have to get these guys together. You got to keep them home, and you just got to do your due justice as far as like when you recruit, make your pitches, make sure guys want to be here at all times when they're visiting. I just don't know what they're doing as far as losing guys and losing recruits year in and year out, because this has been a constant thing. You got to get this thing back on track, but I don't want to call for somebody's job, but
No. All I'm getting
you're
at
no. Oh, you're nothing wrong, but you're 6-22.
It's happening.
The writing's on the wall. There's no coach in college basketball that should keep their job at 6. If I was 6-22, I might fire myself.
Yeah,
because of how good Tom Crean was at Indiana.
And look, Anthony Edwards was at Georgia, but this season it's just been rough. And I think, like you said, what makes it a little more difficult is guys who are on your roster are now not only playing, but are stars for other teams in your league,
in your conference. And that's what hurts the most. Some of these guys, you have 2 of your best guards last year, double-digit guys, transfer within the they didn't transfer West Coast and go to LA or up north to Ohio. They transferred to Kentucky and Auburn. You've had to play against them this year. That hurts as a coach. That hurts for recruiting. When you bring in recruits, what do they say why did so-and-so leave and go to this team? Why did so-and-so leave, go to that team? It's not a good look. Georgia has to get the coach to build a new foundation, the structure, the philosophy, and a new culture to keep guys there and want guys to stay there.
Yeah, recruit the state of Georgia and then keep guys once you get them to Athens. Because this is it's a great basketball state.
Oh yeah, it is. And a lot of guys are leaving. I mean, every year. I know a kid from Upson Lee. He was at Georgia. Guess what he did? He transferred to Ole Miss. He's in your same conference as well, starring at Ole Miss, who's not too bad this year. Not too great, but not too bad as well in the middle of the pack. It's just disappointing if you're a Georgia fan.
I want to thank Kelly Quinlan for joining us on the show today, talking spring practice. The Georgia Tech Yellow Jackets will have more perspective on that coming up in the next couple of days as the Yellow Jackets are underway. Mercer underway with spring practice in the state of Georgia as well. Obviously, today's been a very difficult day. Ahmaud Arbery murdered 2 years ago. We continue to pray for his family, the community. Time today, take some time to reflect. I know a lot of people doing the 2.23 mile walk, but we continue to pray for his family, and the community. We'll see you tomorrow, 3 and Out on the Southern Pigskin Radio Network, ESPNCoastal.com.